But welcome to another edition of Unpluggered, how quickly things change. We reflected on last week and all of the frustrations leading up to it. And then you come out and beat one of last year's preliminary finalists. You do a number on the Cats again for the fourth time in a row at Marvel Stadium. And the season looks very different. And obviously you know that can change again a week later or continue to move in the path that hopefully it looked like it was going to on Saturday night. But the situation and even the critics, or the critics rather, all of that does change as well, from boiled lollies to chocolates, and hopefully not back the other way. Of course, we would like you to jump on board, as we always request, to give us a rating or a review or a like or a follow on whatever your podcast platform is, iTunes. If you go straight through Facebook or straight through X or the Gram or any of that sort of stuff, jump on our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, give us a ranking as well. We'd also like to give a bit of a shout out to our partner, one of our new partners in TICKETVERSE for the 2025 AFL season. Got an opportunity to get premium seats at Marvel Stadium's Medallion Club for St Kilda games with exclusive access to fine dining, bars and more. So visit TICKETVERSE, that's TICKETVERSE, verse.com.au to explore your options that need tickets. They will have you sorted. The Geelong game, Saturday night at Marvel, the old Saturday night specialists, back again. Nick, we put the writing on the wall early, that I must admit we looked likely victors until probably the last 10 minutes, where we had to endure significant heart palpitations, but got a thoroughly deserved victory, and I don't think that can be denied by anybody. It would have been 100% pinched from our hands had we have lost it. Credit to Geelong for nearly doing that, but 100% the right sides won the game.
100%. I mean, I think we spoke last week about the way to beat Geelong, and I think that kind of played out in the first 2.5 quarters. We hit the contest hard. We ran and carried. We were direct. We kicked long. We found targets. We were proactive, not reactive. We made things happen ourselves, and we didn't respond to whatever they threw at us. We went and played our game. And it was only a matter of time until Geelong hit back, right? At some point, they were going to hit back. They're a really good team. Let's not forget that. And I think I take that as a positive, that they hit back and got so close at the end, and we were able to hold them out. And maybe another 10 minutes, it might have looked different again. But I think that we really showcased what we can do when we play our game and when we attack the footy and we attack the contest the right way. But 100% the right team won. I mean, we dominated that game for 2.5 quarters, and it was really. I know they had some injuries too, and they had some niggles and some players on the bench and all that type of stuff. But forget that Hunter Clark went off, Liam Stocker went off. I know Clark ran it out, so to speak, but he was hobbling, pretty heavy towards the end. Isaac Keeler could barely run out the game. Pretty big wake up call for the young kid who showed some glimpses. Beautiful kick for goal, took some nice marks and showed a bit around the ground, but. Massive wake-up call at the effort needed, the fitness needed to play at that level against a really good quality team. And we saw the difference that it made with Rowan Marshall not on the ground as well. When Marshall had 10 or 12 minutes, whatever it was, off the field, that's when Geelong came back into their own, and that's when they really competed. Probably their best period for the game was with Marshall off the ground. So, yes, we absolutely deserved to win that game. I would have loved to have kept piling on the goals in the second half, but like we said, we knew Geelong were going to hit back. They're a really good team, but I was really proud of the way that we attacked that game from the get go, really. And H, you've been calling it for a couple of years. That's how you hit games hard, from the first bounce. We can't sit back and wait for our opponents to take the game by the scruff of the neck and then we react to it. That's how you hit a game. You hit an opponent from the first bounce and you attack them from the first bounce, and it shows what we can do when we do that, because it put us in a position to win the game.
Yeah, notoriously slow starters we've been for probably a couple of years now. It's good to see us just come out of the blocks. We started at a sprint. That the intensity we put out there was amazing. The different team completely to what played for us last week. The absolute chalk and cheese those two teams are. As we were saying last week, that is our time slot. It just, as it's been described, we turn into the 90s Chicago Bulls on a Saturday night at Marvel. It's ridiculous how we've just lifted that much from what we saw last week to this week. And we defended our turf. We defended our time slot. It was great just to see us turn up against a team that I think the three tipsters on the TV before the game said 57, 47 and 52 or something. Geelong's way. You just think that's basically what everyone has picked this week. It's just great to show everyone up and show them that, hey, we're not what we showed in round one. We are more competitive than that. But, I mean, Adelaide are a good team, as we've seen. Although Essendon were left a little bit to be desired on the weekend as well. But still, they're going to be a good team this year. We didn't show up last week, and it showed against them. But as soon as we've arrived at the Marvel, obviously we were switched on. We were ready. We were there to attack the ball, attack the player, attack every contest. And seeing one Geelong player going to pick the ball up and having four of us around him, nowhere to go, and just be driven into the ground every single time, just about, was brilliant. You could not ask any more on what they did on that night.
Look, I don't blame the critics that much, but I do at the same time, in the sense that I think, as we said last year, there's been a bit of laziness about it, like a follow the leader type thing, where they're going to fall into the bottom four on what evidence? Don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost been a case of, well, Frank said it, so must be true. And it's just, yes, round one was disappointing, but I find it interesting that you come up against a Geelong side who you beat last year at Marvel, you beat the year before at Marvel, and you beat the year before that at Marvel. Then you beat them again, and it's the greatest upset people have ever seen. I'm like, huh? Like, yeah, I get it that they've been touted as a potential top four side, but, we and they are for sure, but we match up well on them. We play the ground well. Pace has been a bit of an issue, and we're a side that's won 24 times in 2 years. Like, we're not, North Melbourne's won 5 times in 2 years, and, West Coast won 6 and Richmond's won 12 and all of that type of stuff. Like, we haven't been a basket case. We've won more games in the last 2 years than Hawthorn. It's, it's one of those things that I think people have been a little bit lazy in that space. Now, I'm not saying we're destined to charge into the finals or anything like that, but the obvious bottom four side narrative has really had very little evidence behind it. And if you look at round one, you can find mitigating factors as to why that happened. But at the same time, clearly it was disappointing. And the reason it was disappointing was because of what we saw on Saturday. We're up against it, against the Crows. We had players out. We were underdone. They were on fire. It was at their ground. But our pressure was ordinary. Our leadership was ordinary. Our ability to handle key moments was ordinary. We failed the test, and we didn't put enough heat on them to make it as difficult as possible, which is where we let ourselves down. And we didn't do that against Geelong. We turned it up, and we brought exactly what we needed to bring. But yeah, I think it's for people who were stunned by it. I think that's on them, not on us, and not on Geelong or anything like that. I just think maybe again people have been a touch lazy and a touch premature on that criticism.
The Saints fans obviously would be a proud and pleasantly surprised feeling, as opposed to surprised. I think we all said last week we are a chance. We may not feel like it going into the game because we've been told we're no chance, but we felt, okay, there is a chance. So yeah, we took it.
Take the second half against Geelong last time and the first half against Geelong this time, and you're staring down the barrel of a 100-point win ultimately. I mean, and that's, I'm not saying that that's what we deserved to see, but it shows the ability that we have when we put it together. And it's on us to get more consistent, to put it together more often. But I mean, if that's not a bit of a shot across the bow to the detractors and the commentators that write us off week after week after week, then I don't know what is, because Geelong are a really good team. And, I think people underrated Adelaide in round one and kind of said, oh, well, St Kilda's, fell apart, and we did to some extent. But I think Adelaide are a pretty good team, and I think there's also been a bit of, well, what happened to Geelong on Saturday night? Why were they so bad? It wasn't that Geelong were bad; they showed that in the second half. They're a really good team. We were really good in that first half, and that's where I think that the difference is. Like you said, we all thought that we were a bit of a shot. I'm not sure we all expected to win, but I think we all said that we're a bit of a shot here. That there's a blueprint to beating Geelong at Marvel. We've done it in the past. We've done it the last few times. We can do it again. We've got to, things have to go right for us. We've got to put it together. But that's how you do it. Let's go out and do it. And I feel like that, you said, Parko, around commentators kind of all banding together and following the leader, etc. There's certainly a bit of that, and kind of following the loudest voice, and whoever gets in first kind of leads the pack. And someone at the start of the preseason says, "Oh, well, the Saints are going to be rubbish," blah blah blah. Their kids are no good, blah blah blah. Their leaders are no good, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, Channel 7 says the same thing. Channel 9 says the same thing. Fox Footy says the same thing. SEN says the same thing. And everybody says the same thing because it must be true. But it's just not the case. And we've shown now what we can do when we play our game. And now it's on us to kind of prove that we can do it week in, week out.
Yeah, and to extend that, you probably find that the first person who is coming out and saying that we're rubbish has done the least amount of research. They're saying their kids are no good, and they're going, hang on, have a look at the players we have got. Our kids are probably our biggest upside of our whole list. There's just a whole looking at it, as you're saying, the first one that come out, you're going, you're just taking a stab at that. You just want to be first in. You just want to be, and it's time that quite a few of those people out there start doing a bit of their own work, start doing a bit of looking into things instead of just, following on everyone else. But how good is it to prove them wrong if we turn it around this season and completely show them all that, they had no idea. The best thing in all of it.
Yeah, I mean, how are the D's going? How about Essendon? What about Carlton, Freo? You know what I mean? Like it's interesting now. I mean, obviously they might all pick up the pace and keep going, and we've had one bad performance and one good performance. I get that, but there is a little bit of that. It doesn't matter so much what people say. It's sort of what you do, but it does annoy you a little bit because you kind of sitting there thinking, well, it's just lazy and it's borderline disrespectful at times. So I know you've got to earn that with success, and we haven't done much for 14 years or whatever, sure, but it doesn't change the reality of what sits in front of you and that type of stuff. And I guess now we're in that position where 12 months ago we started the season okay. We were competitive against Geelong and then had a great win over Collingwood. And then we played Essendon. We copped a bit of bad luck before that game with the King suspension and the Wood injury and a couple of other things. But then we dominated the game but stuffed it up. And that kind of derailed us. We've done the same thing here. Obviously, great win over Geelong, launched ourselves. We're favourites against Richmond. The health of our list is steadily improving. So now it's obviously a test of the maturity of the group. Don't stuff that up, basically. Just back that up, put another performance in, make that your one wood, so to speak, and put games away because the draw gets a bit tough over the next few weeks after that. So 2-1 puts you in a solid position to navigate through that, and you're still alive regardless of what happens through that. If you were to drop this game and then struggle through that period, then you're cooked, basically. So now it's another test of the maturity to nail something that you're supposed to get done.
Yeah, one of the other questions, I guess, that's been asked of us, or statements, I guess, not even a question that's asked of us, is the statement that Ross is this defensive-minded coach. He's boring to watch. His teams are boring, blah, blah, blah. And I think the three of us have kind of railed against that over the last couple of years, talking about how he wants to play. And we haven't necessarily done it for a number of reasons, inexperience, inability, all those types of things, fitness, health, etc. But the way that Ross Lyon wants to play, I think we've now seen it enough. When we play our game, when we play our style of footy, that's what we see. We see run and gun. We see direct footy. Transition footy from defense to attack, he's so quick and it happens, like lightning. Can we put those, can we now put those, comments, detractors, whatever you want to call it. Can we put that to bed now? Because it's just like it's just played out. It's boring. It's as boring as how they say we play, which isn't how we play.
He's still definitely got that defensive side of his game, that his game plan. That's still there, but we've built on it on the other end. We've built on the transition out of that defensive lock and moved it up the field. And then that's the base of the area you had to work on. And I think last year we were the quickest team to move from defence to forward line all year. We just couldn't finish. Yep. We didn't have that. What we saw pretty much every time we went into the forward line on the weekend, lowering our eyes and hitting a target. And we haven't done that well for, you'd almost go back to the 2009, 2010 sort of time. That's the last time we really did it that well. The way we moved into our forward line after getting the ball from our defensive line, some of the best you will probably see in most teams. If we continue to keep this skill level up, we'll win more games than I guess more than anyone expected. It's just the sort of play that building from the defensive line and moving it forward that quickly, it's not going to be a lot of teams that can defend it. And Adelaide kind of did it to us last week. They had that similar sort of style and beat us with it. We knew what Geelong's strengths and abilities were last week, and we played on that. We knew that they're a little bit slower. They're a little bit a bit more in and under and harder and tougher sort of team compared to most. We knew moving the ball fast would cause them issues, and it's exactly what we did. So that kind of movement it's going to be really good against most teams. There will have to be a couple of little adjustments here and there, but hey.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how rusty Sinclair and Marshall were last week, and then obviously one game makes all that difference. Marshall goes back to getting 29 possessions, 30 hit-outs and a bunch of clearances. And I guess probably the only concerns, as you mentioned a little bit at the top, Nick, you look at someone like Isaac Keeler, who, in the last quarter we were getting pushed off the ball a little bit. We couldn't find any stability in terms of ball movement and that type of thing. That's just going to come with a bit of experience where he was getting ragdolled a little bit, but certainly encouraging overall for him. The Jack Steele MVP Awards, looking at our votes across the week, it is very, very difficult. I've got one incredibly unlucky player that I've actually missed a vote, probably the most unlucky player I've ever found in terms of distributing votes in this award. But I gave one to Zach Jones, I thought, for his efforts for probably 3.5 quarters, faded a touch in the last 10 minutes. He might have got 2 votes otherwise with that. A vote to Mason Woods. It was either going to be him or Jack Sinclair, and that's why Jack Sinclair is the unluckiest player of the week. I thought Mason Wood, 26 possessions, 10 marks and 2 goals. Third time in his career he's done what you might call a triple-double in a football sense. Mitch Owens, I thought, his numbers aren't going to be enormous, but he controlled the forward line, his desperation, his goal assists, his impact on nearly every contest. That was an enormous game from him. Caminiti, 13 marks in defence. His last 5 minutes of the game was particularly pivotal, where he took 3 or 4 at key stages. That was a very good wall, so to speak, when we were under siege. I gave a vote to Nass. He could easily have got 2 or 3. I gave a vote to Marshall. He could easily have got 2, 3 or 4 even. I gave 2 votes to Marcus Windhager, 25 possessions, a couple of goals. Obviously did the tagging role on Max Holmes, which is oh so crucial. And the other 2 votes went to the bloke who shouldn't be playing in the middle. So they're the votes that I distributed across the 10. Nick, how did you see it?
Yeah, pretty similar. I think, like you said, there are so many blokes that could have gotten votes this week, and I feel sorry for a bunch of them. You mentioned a few of them in yours, Jones and Owens, who I thought probably should. I wanted to give them votes, and I just couldn't find one for those guys. I loved Mitch Owens' game. It reminded me a bit of kind of prime Aaron Hamill, just that wrecking ball in the forward line. And when he doesn't take the mark and kick the goal, he brings it to ground and allows Collard or Higgins or whoever it is around the forward 50 to kind of get involved. And I really loved how he went about it, and that's kind of the benchmark now for Mitch Owens for the rest of this season, I think. But But I gave one vote to Jack Steele. I mean, we asked him to lift last week, and I think he did, both in terms of the leadership perspective, winning the ball, but defensively and leading from the front, 13 tackles, that was the Jack Steele game, that we want. He doesn't need to get 30 or 40 touches to play a Jack Steele game, but that's the role that we need him to do now that he's got some help in the middle, and that some of the young blokes around him are stepping up. So one vote to Jack Steele. I gave one to Higgins. Probably could have had 2 or 3 as well. I thought he was dynamic, exciting, all the things that we love about Jack Higgins. He displayed on Saturday night. I gave one to Jack Sinclair. How good is seeing Jack Sinclair forward of centre, hitting the scoreboard? He's so dynamic, and he makes things happen. He's one of the guys when we play proactive footy. Jack Sinclair's being proactive, and he's not just taking the ball at half back and whatnot. He's pushing forward, he's getting down the wing, he's pushing through the middle, and he's impacting forward of centre. And I thought that he played that role to perfection. A little bit like Naz, and Naz probably played a little bit deeper than Sinks, but he's really reading the ball, reading the flight of the ball, is taking important, crucial marks inside defensive 50, and then repelling and pushing forward and creating attacking opportunities with his ball use out of defensive 50. He's in our top 5, probably top 3 most important players now, Naz. And, I really hope that we can put this to bed and we can re-sign him, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it takes, just get it done. Because I'm not sure what we look like without Naz down back anymore. I gave one to Windhager, probably his best game since round 2 last year. He's had a couple of big games where he's played that defensive role, but been able to work forward and create attacking opportunities from that defensive role. And I thought he did that perfectly. Max Holmes is so important for Geelong in their engine room, and he completely stopped Holmes in that first half and was able to push forward and be an offensive force and hit the scoreboard. And again, a little bit like Mitch Owens, that's the baseline now. I think this is what we should be expecting from Marcus Windhager. He doesn't have to kick 2 goals every week, but if he can, nullify, one of the most important midfield options for the opponent each week, and then go back the other way and push forward and hurt them, then we've got a really good midfielder on our hands, and that's the level that he has to aspire to, every week from now. I gave 2 to Jack McRae. Just another incredible performance. And like you said, Darren, shouldn't be playing in the midfield. Certainly shouldn't be playing in the midfield. It's definitely a flanker or a winger or someone, but definitely shouldn't be in the midfield because he can only rack them up and hit targets willy-nilly. So, not good enough. Could have quite easily have had 7 or 8 votes, Jack McRae, but only gave him the 2 this week. And then 3 to Rowan Marshall. I thought his impact was immense. Probably unlucky for Jack McRae that he got Rowan Marshall in that sort of form, because McRae would have been best on ground, I would have thought. But Marshall was unbelievable, unbelievable. And it showed, I mentioned at the top, it showed when he went off the ground, the impact that Geelong was able to have going back the other way. He's our most important player, and it's not even a shadow of a doubt, I don't think, anymore. He's our most important player. I wanted to see Harry Boyd play and push Marshall forward for some time, but I'm not sure you can after a game like that. I saw a tweet during the game, or maybe it was after the game. It might have been Tim Rosen saying that Rowan Marshall's just retired Harry Boyd to Sandringham for the rest of the season on that performance. And he might be right, because if Rowan Marshall doesn't get injured or doesn't need a rest, then he's the number 1 ruck. He's the standalone ruck until he isn't. And he's just an incredible player, Rowan Marshall.
I think I had 12 players and I had to squeeze them into 10 votes. And I was sitting there going, do I just drop 2 and go 10 ones or that? And I thought, no, I'm going to really pull this back. And I got it down to half, and I had 5. And it was one of those weeks you go, I need a joke around or I can double the votes up. It was a tough one to put together. Ended up going with Zach Jones for 1. The comparison of people asking when did he turn into peak Gary Ablett in 1 week. It was amazing, the performance he put out there. Just the sort of thing that we know he has the ability of doing, and the he was brought over for his breaking abilities at the Lions, and he was always a bit of a, I guess, questionable ball user. We always knew he had good, reasonable ball usage, and what he provided on Saturday night was nothing short of brilliant. That's the sort of game that a lot of other weeks he would have got 2 to 3 votes, but it was just so many ahead of him. Won the Windhager as well. Just did the job on forgotten his name again. Holmes. And Max Holmes, and got the ball, got the goals, kicked the goals, just did everything he had to do, and basically dominated his position on the night. Turned the Naz, just silky, clean, just breaking away from packs, making the space, finding the player, just did everything possible in the night, and it's just showing why we need to lock him down as soon as possible. He's should be our number one target, even though he's already in our team. He is our number one target. He's got to stay. And then I couldn't split Marshall and the midfielder that shouldn't be named. I had to give him both 3 because just watching Marshall down to McRae, Marshall down to McRae, Marshall down to McRae into the 50. It was just a thing of poetry. It was amazing to watch. We haven't had that tap, take away into the 50, hit a target sort of thing for quite some time. And it just continued to happen, and they couldn't do anything about it. The Geelong could not stop it. And it's just so good to watch that sort of ease of movement from the centre. And we've struggled for so long with that sort of thing, even with Steele in the middle, even with going back to Jack Stephen in the middle, just players like that. Yeah, they did it, but not with that ease. We never had that ease. And it was so good to watch. But those two, if they keep tagging up like that together, we're going to see some great football for the rest of the year coming up. So those two definitely deserved, probably, and as it equals out between all the 3 of us, the equal best on ground.
H keeping the ball rolling at your end with the Jason Blake Award, of which you could probably nominate 20 blokes.
Well, I had to give it to Jack McRae simply on the fact that Matthew Lloyd on the Sunday Footy Show didn't give him any votes. And I was just, when it came up on the screen, I've just gone, how? What game was he watching? Then I thought, okay, thinking back to who used to be on that show, Kane Gawns, I'm going, they must be good mates or something, because he clearly must have missed him all night. And if he's not getting noticed by the people giving votes, what's he got to do? I mean, 47 and 3 goals or something. I mean, it's sort of a performance that wins a game and doesn't get recognised at all. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, yes, as we struggled finding only so many players to give votes to, but surely he has to feature like he has everywhere else in the votes. And I could not believe when I saw his name not on there.
Yeah, and certainly on the coaches' votes, he figured prominently as well. Nick, your nomination?
Yeah, it's interesting because, between you and I, the Jason Blake Award goes to both our highest vote getters in this game. I gave it to Rowan Marshall because I just feel like he's still underrated, even after performances like that. Outside of Matthew Lloyd, it felt like everybody was just giving Jack McRae maximum votes. And Marshall at sometimes wasn't even in the conversation, but I just thought he was incredible. And for some reason, nobody still puts him in that conversation of the best ruckman in the competition. I mean, the guy was clearly cooked last week. Hampered by injury, he wasn't fit, he was unhealthy. And within 7 days, he's turned it around to be the best player on the field, or in the best 2 at the very worst. He's just, no one seems to give him the credit that he deserves. And I think it's about time.
Yeah, mine probably goes to a couple of players, really, for different reasons. One being Liam Stocker for his first half. I thought he was incredibly important. His tackling and his intensity, one of those tackles ended up sacrificing himself, or he copped a concussion and misses another week. But he's a very important player, Liam Stocker. I think he's, very close to best 22. I like it when he's out there. I just think we're, a little bit more resilient. So I wanted to praise him. Disappeared at halftime, unfortunately, with that injury. And then probably a young man who wasn't having a huge influence and probably hasn't over his first couple of games, had a baptism of fire last week. And then only had the 4 touches on the weekend, but a game-saving, goal-saving mark in the deep in defence type of stuff that you would, a fearless footballer who's played for 20 years might do. But for O'Connell to do that, second game coming out of the Irish system, but they are obviously pretty tough, but it's a little bit different in terms of the contact at that level. So, that was a very, very important thing to do that hopefully does his confidence the world of good. In terms of the Shannon Knoll Lift Award, Nick, I might give you that one first.
Yeah, I've given it to the coaching group, but in a positive way. I kind of look at this situation a little bit like a tennis match in a Grand Slam. And Darren, you've seen your fair share of tennis matches, but when you take a service game off your higher seeded opponent, you cannot afford to concede straight away. If you want to win that set, if you want to win the match, you cannot concede your own service game straight away. And that's how I feel about this game. This is a bit of a banana peel game for us. Event game, big game, Maddie's match, all that type of stuff against a team not expected to win. All the expectation is now on us after Saturday night. We cannot concede this game to Richmond. We have to win this game, and it's on the coaching group to get them up, keep them up, and make sure that we turn up and again smack him in the mouth from the first bounce and take him out. Because if we want to be seen as legitimate, we can't go and play an incredible half footy against Geelong and then lose to Richmond.
Going into a very similar line there, Saturday, fans turn up. We know Richmond fans are loud at the worst of times, and let's get there. We've seen how they played last week. If we play like that again this week, it's going to be great to watch. But we want to be the loudest. We want to be the ones making the noise. Let's get there. Drown out the Richmond fans. Let's fill our stadium. It's our game, our ground. Let's make it our day. And all the fans, let's just be as loud as you can. Let's show them how we can do it too. They are almost probably close to the level that most teams want to be. Let's try and get as close to that as we can. So let's all try and get there this week and make the most of it. And being the last Maddie's match as it is, let's make it a memorable one.
St Kilda's social media team, it's too good or too fast in many respects. So I noticed it a little bit through last season. I noticed it in the Adelaide game as well, and in the Geelong game on Saturday night, taking that in on KO. Now, KO is not the fastest thing in the world. Like, it'll buffer a little bit, and it might be 30 seconds behind or 20 seconds behind play. But it creates... I've got to change my football watching habits a little bit, because St Kilda tweet goals immediately, which is a fantastic service, but they're so fast that I'll watch Jack Higgins take a mark and he'll be walking back, and then my phone will ding with Higgins has his third, and then I'm like, oh, sweet. But then we'll take a mark 40 metres out 30 seconds later, and I don't hear the ding, and then I get all anxious going, oh, shit, he's missed. And then turns out he has missed, and you're like, well, it's like the result of the kick in advance because they're so good. Now, that's partially a crack at KO for being shit, but also the St Kilda social media team for being just too good or too efficient. So if they could just sync that up a little bit so that I can actually watch it completely live, not against the St Kilda social media team. So just a mild one.
Don't have to turn away when you're
there's
watching.
There's no surprises in goals anymore. Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. So, at least that's sort of one side of it. But your brain's going, he's lining up for goal, and St Kilda haven't tweeted yet. That means he's missed. So, yeah, that's a little one. We have a few guests in the pipeline for the coming weeks with, some interesting stories to tell. People like Heath Black and various others like that we'll chat to over coming weeks. So looking forward to some of those. We take on Richmond 4:15 on Saturday, so that's most of the time slots have had a slight tinkering. Like we played Adelaide at 12:30. The twilight game used to be 4:30 or 4:40, but 4:15 now. Selection's going to be interesting. Obviously, Stocker can't play without concussion. Clark's listed as TBC with an abdominal injury. He can't take a trick. You'd think that's probably a month or more based on the TBC aspect of it, which is really unfortunate. Liam Henry managed minutes on the weekend, kicked a goal, had probably 15. They thought about bringing him straight in, so you'd think that hour or so, or whatever he played, might be enough to get him in, given they have to make changes. Cooper Sharman, now he did intimate in the President's luncheon the other day that he thought round 4 was when he would return, but he's still in the mix for round 3, so they might pick him, and hopefully they do. But obviously there are changes that have to be made. Travalia looked pretty solid for Sandy, 21 or 22, and kicked a goal. Boxall moved around okay, had early 20s. Schoenmaker had a good return to the VFL. His stats were padded a little bit by kick-ins. Geelong kicked 19 behinds and he had 32 touches, but his numbers were pretty good otherwise and actually did play quite a decent game. So, I'm interested to see Butler still a week or two, King still a week or two, and then obviously Filippo and Howard get a little bit closer towards about a month off. But what are we expecting, Nick, changes-wise, given there have to be at least 2?
I think Henry and Travalia are the 2 this week. I'd love to see Boxall. If it's not Travalia coming in for Hunter Clark, then I'd love to see Boxall get some time in the middle. But like you said, that it feels like they were really close to playing Liam Henry in the ones last week, and if that's the case, then he probably only needed half a game or so in the 2s. So I'd be surprised if he wasn't named. I'd love to see Toby because I feel like his preseason, he did everything asked of him. The practice games and the matchups and whatever. I thought he did everything asked of him, and it seemed like he just took that into round 1 in the VFL on the weekend as well. So I'd love to see Toby. They're probably the 2. Stocker and Clark coming out. I don't think there'll be any others. But who knows? But those are the 2. I'd be surprised if Sharman came straight back. Probably needs to play a game or 2 in the 2s as well, just to find his feet again, because it's been a little while. So I think those are the 2. I'm not sure. I mean, H, do you expect Sharman to come in now?
You wouldn't think he's going to come in after what we saw last week. You probably don't want to, I guess, split that up too much. He's probably our number 1 full forward target at the current time. That's the only argument you can put up and go, okay, well, we want a dedicated full forward, which could, free up a couple of the players that sort of move it up the ground a little bit more and have that good target up there. It's hard to keep him out, that's for certain. But it's the changes you mentioned. They're probably the most likely. You'd think Keeler keeps his spot. It's hard to sort of drop him after one game. That'd be pretty rough on him. I mean, it's the only kind of changes you can sort of go, okay, that may happen is the likes of, say, Keeler and Collard and them. But it is pretty hard to drop him after the way we've played. So it's possible that he does come in, but it's whether we want that dedicated full forward in the team. And then unfortunately someone's going to miss out. And unfortunately that could be either a Collard or a Keeler, despite they don't really deserve to be dropped straight away.
Fair bit of talk around Boxall debuting this week and Travalia highly likely is the word that's sort of coming through. So that would give us, 6 debutants in 3 weeks. So that's obviously a fair old step in terms of development. And you throw in the fact that Taru's 2 weeks away from playing a VFL game. So that's quite good signs as well in terms of what that all might look like. In terms of how we get it done, you'd look at Richmond. They play with a fair bit of enthusiasm and dare and pace, as young sides do, a bit of a throw caution to the wind. Their first 2 games have been clearly inconsistent. First round, they were ordinary early and then got on a roll, played inspired footy and beat Carlton. And then against Port, they were getting smashed early. They probably fought it out okay late, but you kind of feel they're going to play good quarters, good halves, good periods, have 15-minute bursts, do this, do that. Can be dangerous. And obviously you've got to be on your toes because they're going to, play somewhat fearlessly. And obviously all of these young kids are quite talented, but you would hope that system, structure, pressure, experience, those sorts of things all rise above that. And maybe our connection, which was so pivotal against Geelong, will be enough to sort of hold them at bay. That's how I hope it goes. And look, they'll have some stinkers this year. It'd be nice if this was one of them. But yeah, Nick, I'm kind of hoping that's how I'm reading it. That maybe our system will be a little bit too hard for them to break down.
I hope so. And I mean, like you said, they play with enthusiasm, they play with effort, they play with intensity, and they run and gun. And they're essentially playing for free this year, right? Like they've got nothing to lose. No one is expecting them to win a game. They've already won a game. They've beaten one of the biggest rivals. So they kind of said even that night that was kind of like winning the grand final, winning that game. But so they've got nothing to lose and we have everything to lose. We have to stick to our game. We have to ensure, like you said, that structure stays in place. They are going to hit us. They're going to run hard. They're going to be direct. They're going to kick long, all those types of things. We've got to make sure that our structure stays intact, but that we are able to hit them back the other way. And ultimately, a little bit like we said at the top of the show, we've got to do it from the first bounce. We can't wait for them to hit us and then react and try and hit them back. We've got to hit them first. Punch them in the mouth and don't let them react. You know what I mean? Like get them on the floor, get them on the ropes, and then just put the foot down. And that's ultimately what we have to do. We haven't done it really against bad teams, young teams, poor teams, whatever you want to call them. We haven't done it for a long time. But this is the opportunity now, full of momentum after a great win on Saturday night, that this is the time where, we see a young team ripe for the killing. And that's what we have to do to kind of keep proving ourselves to everybody else week after week. And I know that's not really the goal, is that we've got to show everyone what we can do and who we are and whatever, but it would be nice. It'd be nice for some of those commentators and whatever to take a bit of notice and potentially give us a bit of respect and credit for the things that we do, rather than just, blaming our good wins on our opponents. So yeah, I think that's kind of what we have to do. We've got to play 4 quarters the type of footy that we played in the first half last week. And, if we do that, then that 100-point win that we've been asking for years is not out of the question.
Hopefully we don't get the horrible scrap that it was in the other round last year against them. That would be, it's the kind of thing that they would probably hoping that they might be able to do a little bit of and bring us back to their level. And that's the trap we do fall into sometimes. We do fall into that. This team's meant to be pretty ordinary. We go back and be pretty ordinary too. We play our game, play our style, play our sort of the way that we want to control how the day goes. If we can do that, then as you're saying, we could have a big win on the board. We can get to 2-1, get our percentage hopefully back over 100. But obviously, first things first is get that good start. But let's make a bit certain of what we're doing is working. Don't fall into the Carlton trap of thinking you're just turning up and going to win it. Let's play the way that you would play against a Geelong like we did last week. That you still got to play that same football. You can't just show up and think it's in the bag. So we do that. We shouldn't have an issue. And that's the simplest way to say it. We play properly. We should not have an issue. And yeah, let's hopefully have a great day.
Hopefully indeed. Got some listener questions in a moment, but remember, the Medallion Club isn't out of reach for single games, whether you're looking for a corporate perk for a client or just a more comfortable night at the footy. Go to TICKETVERSE.com.au, TICKETVERSE, VERSE.com.au to get your Medallion Club seats for St Kilda games at Marvel Stadium with exclusive access to fine dining, bars and more. Visit ticketverse.com.au to explore your options. Tickets all sorted. Matt, digging a bit deeper with his question in regards to Kane Corn's gripe with Jack McRae and St Kilda. I think Kane's planted a flag and he has to die on that hill, basically. That's kind of how I see that.
That is what he does.
But yes, it's gone a little bit over the top. I mean, he does have a point on Jack McRae, though. I mean, I think he's had 70 possessions and 23 clearances in 2 weeks, so probably shouldn't be on the ball. Lewis, St Kilda's poor form in round 1, or is it very good form in round 2 going to be more indicative of what will happen in 2025? Look, there were reasons in round 1. It's up to St Kilda which way it goes, I guess, but there'll be some inconsistencies, but I certainly hope
it's probably
and
in
believe
between
that round 2
somewhere.
is closer to the mark than round 1. Yeah.
It'll be in between. It'll be hopefully closer to what we saw against Geelong, but yeah, it's definitely not going to be above what we saw on the weekend all year, that's for sure.
Shay asked the question as well. Can we play all 3 of King, Keeler and Sharman, Nick?
Interesting one. I think we can because they're all quite different players. I think Keeler moves around the ground quite well. He can also go down back. He's played a bunch of games in the twos as a defender for Sandy, and I think that, given we do have some structural issues there with the availability of key defenders, that it's quite possible that when King and Sharman are back, if Keeler's fit and healthy and playing good footy, that we have the potential to move him back and play defensive roles with someone like Caminiti, who I think is now a defender. I think, unless we have some, incredible injury issue up forward, I think Anthony Caminiti has to stick with that role in defence because I think he's just played better footy. He's got the big body. He attacks the ball. He attacks the contest. But that opens up a spot potentially up forward for someone like a Keeler, or you push him back again.
We've had questions from a couple in regards to, I think it's Dom is one of those, and a couple of others as to whether Travalia plays this week, basically suggesting surely this is the one. I think so. I think Travalia definitely, Boxall maybe. Jason, another one who asked that question. And Tim asked the question, is it possible that our youth development program is finally enhancing the youngsters the way we want and need them to? For years, we've made promising young players stagnate with subpar development programs. Have we finally found a few of the secret herbs and spices? I think that's a very good point. Yes, we've seen a bit of that with our, kids stagnating a bit over the years, whether that's our fault, whether that's their fault, whether that's a combination, or whether it was recruiters' fault in the first place. But yeah, it looks like development-wise now that most of the kids we're picking are turning into close to their ceiling or close to what they can be. So, and we turned over, I think it's 20 players in 2 years, and we've had something like 17 debutants since the start of the Ross Lyon era in 2023, or at least within a couple of weeks we will. So, H, I think we are finding the secret. They're not all going to work, but we should be having more hits than misses of late.
Yeah, well, it always works out if you get, I guess, at least half of your draftees turn out to be 100, 200, but it's even up to 250 sort of gamers. It's a win. But they've got to get on the park first to even get to that stage. So, and that's what we're doing. We're giving these kids the opportunity to show what they got, get out there and give it their best for ever how long it's going to be to start with. And if you're good enough, you stay out there. And that's how it works. We're giving these kids a go. And that's what we have to do. Playing, I guess, all our senior players every week at the moment, it's not going to get these young kids on the field and get them the experience that they need at that top level. Because, yeah, as good as the VFL is, it's never going to give you that level of experience, and it is nothing like it. So we've seen that most of what we've had come through recently, over the last few years, most of them are up to it. Most of them have an ability. We saw Mateus play a whole season. Wilson play a whole season. The likes of some of the other younger kids who have played in and out sort of thing. We're starting to see Garcia pick up a bit more again as well. He was basically, as I think most people are saying at the moment, he's like a super sub almost for us at the minute. Whether he's going to be able to lift to that level of playing a full game in some year or two or whatever. At the moment, that's his strength. His strength is coming on and hitting the game for that half an hour period or whatever he plays. So different things for different players. It's going to be a great experience for him. So we'll keep playing him. As I say, it'd be tough to drop Keeler and any others this week. Simply to the fact that, you give them a taste of it, and then all of a sudden they're back out in the cold suburbs playing again, and it's not where any of them want to be. They want to be in the senior team. That's the reason they play. So let's just hope that we can keep giving them games and get that experience, and they become players who will provide for us for years to come.
Yeah, and obviously we're certainly hoping that path does continue, and then it comes down to the fitness crew making sure that they get them right as well. It is round 3 under the lid, twilight, home game at Marvel. That's close enough to a night game. So I guess the message is avoid the banana peel, secure back-to-back victories before the doubleheader in Adelaide. So that is the assignment, and hopefully we can reflect next week on another 4 points and an encouraging build-up. But, looking forward to selection on Thursday night as well. Go Saints.